Good morning, boys and girls and parents. I wanted to make this video to share with you some ways that you could use the packet that the Wichita Public Schools is providing to you. I also wanted to give you some adaptations that you could make to it. So if the packet is a little hard for your child or too easy, I'm going to give you some ideas for how you can help them and also some ways to make it more difficult if it's not challenging enough for them. This video can be used just for your child to watch. If you just want to put them in front of it, I'm going to ask them questions. I'm going to look through different parts of the packet. I'm going to read them the stories and then also work out some of the math problems. It is totally up to you how you want to use this video. If you want to just watch certain sections of it each day, or if you want to watch it all at once, that's totally up to you. And if you choose not to use it at all, that's totally fine too. I just wanted to give you another resource to help you. I know that right now we are going through some difficult times as a country. The future is a little bit uncertain, and I know that can cause stress for us. I know that lots of people are losing their jobs, and I want you to know that it's okay if you don't have time to focus on going through a packet right now. Our hope is that your child can continue to learn at home as much as possible, but we also don't want to create any more stress than you already might have at this time. So know that it's okay. We're going to take this slow, and I'm just here to support your child however I can. Okay, we're going to start by looking at the packet. This is the packet for the second week. You may have not gotten it in the mail yet, and that's totally okay. They should be arriving soon if they haven't already. Please let me know if in a few days you still haven't received your packet. I want to make sure that everyone has access to the packets and that you all are able to get one and do it with your child if you choose. The packets are also available online. If you decide that you want to access it through the Wichita Public Schools website, that's also an option. Okay, so I'm looking here at the first story in the packet. It's called Sea Sanctuary. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to read the story. I'm also going to ask some questions. So these will be questions. Some of them are already on the page, and then some of them I'm going to add in questions that I would ask the kids in class. You could have your child write the answers in this notes section, or you might just choose to have them answer it out loud. So this first passage, it tells us the purpose for reading is to learn how plants and animals in a sea sanctuary depend on each other. That's what we're going to try to figure out as we read this. Okay, I'm going to start here where it says we. As we read through this, it tells us to underline text that describes how all the parts of an ecosystem work together. It also tells us to circle text that describes why so many species are found in Monterey Bay. Okay, so as you're going through this, boys and girls, you can underline or you can circle those things as you find them. So as I read this, if you're listening to me read, I want you to follow along as I read and then underline or circle those things. We often think of a wildlife sanctuary as a jewel of land that has been set aside to keep safe. But there are ocean sanctuaries too. The United States government has preserved 13 important areas as marine or sea sanctuaries. The largest of them is California's Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And over here, there's a place where you can write what a sanctuary is. And if you're not sure what a sanctuary is, you can look back at this sentence where it has the word sanctuary and think about, if I took out that word, what other word could I put in its place? That would be a synonym. So if you can think of a synonym or another word that could go in that place, that will help you to think of the meaning of the word. Okay, I'm going to go to the next page. This sanctuary is an ecosystem. It is an environment whose non-living parts, such as water and earth, work with its living parts. Each part is like a companion to another part. And here you can write what the word companion means. Upwelling is one example of this. Wind causes cold water to rise to the surface of the ocean. This cold water causes new plants to grow. Then animals come to eat these plants. This food source is the chief reason why so many species are drawn to Monterey Bay. No enclosure or closed space keeps them there. The food does. Okay, and there's a picture of a sea otter and a caption that goes along with that. Here we find our first question. It says, summarize the way in which the living and non-living parts of Monterey Bay work together. And it tells us that we can find that answer in lines 8 to 16. And over here you'll notice these nice numbers that mark the lines for us. So 8 would be right here to 16. So in order to answer that question, you're going to have to look back in this last paragraph that we just read to find the answer for how the non-living and living parts of Monterey Bay work together. If you need to pause the video to write in the answer, go ahead and do that. Another thing I'd like you to think about and write about over here in the notes is, do you think that this story is a fiction story or a non-fiction story? We've talked about that a lot in class. So you'll have to remember what fiction and non-fiction means, and hopefully you do. So right over here if it's fiction or nonfiction, and then how you know. Remember to give that example. Okay, turning to the next page. This again gives us some directions. Now we're supposed to underline the text that describes what a food chain is. So anything that tells us about a food chain or what it is, we're going to underline. And then we're going to circle the kinds of animals that might be found in flower garden banks. So when we see any information about those animals, we're going to circle it. Okay, here we have a diagram. This is an example of a food chain. At the bottom of the food chain, we have the plankton. It tells us that krill eat the tiny plankton. The rockfish eats the krill. Sea lions eat rockfish. And orcas eat sea lions. So orcas are the top predator of that food chain. A healthy environment keeps each member of the food chain well fed. Orcas eat sea lions eat rockfish, and so on down to tiny plankton. Okay, on the next page, we have the seafood chain. Each plant and animal in a sanctuary is part of a food chain. A necessary bond connects each hunter to its prey. The need for food is why a hungry orca might charge at a sea lion. It is the same reason a sea lion might leave a rockfish, exhausted after a chase. One animal depends on another for life. Flower garden banks. Coral reefs and ocean waters are inseparable. Coral reefs can be found 110 miles off the Texas and Louisiana coasts. They are protected by the Flower Garden Banks, a 36,000-acre marine sanctuary. The coral reefs lie on top of two salt domes, old underwater mountains. Today, Flower Garden Banks Sanctuary is home to 23 types of coral. Anyone with affection for marine creatures will find many animals there. One might see turtles, manta rays, or the odd intruder, such as the huge whale shark. And there were several things in that part that I just read that I could circle, where it said circle the kinds of animals that might be found in flower garden banks. That's what this whole portion is about. And for underlining text that describes what a food chain is, that would be in this section. So go ahead and take a minute, if you haven't already, and underline and circle from those sections. Okay, down here at the bottom we have a short response question, and we also have a vocabulary word over here that we can write the meaning to. What is a coral reef? We've talked about those before in class, so we should know what those are. Why might Flower Garden Banks have become a marine sanctuary? Cite evidence from the text in your response. Okay, so we're going to use this last section to answer that because we see that that's about Flower Garden Banks. And we're going to write about why that has become a marine sanctuary. Make sure that you're citing evidence, so using specific examples from that part of the story in your answer. Another question I'd like you to answer about this story is, what do you think the main idea is? Over here you can write main idea. Remember, a main idea is what a story is mostly about. So go ahead over here and write in 1 or 2 sentences, what is the main idea of this story we just read? Okay, now we're done with that first story, and we're going to look at the next one. You probably don't want to do this whole packet in one day, so you might choose to stop after that first story for the day. You could do some other things like silent reading, practicing your math facts. If you have the ability to get on the computer, you can do Lexia or Dreambox. So you want to break up your day, not just doing the packet for a really long time, but trying to do some different activities. And I also want you to know that you should only be doing about 60 minutes of schoolwork a day. If you want to do more than that, you're welcome to, but we want the kids to still be able to have fun and do other things. So don't feel like they need to do the packet in one day. It's really designed to be worked on in sections.